This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, guys, we're on. Okay, Parshat Vayechi, the last Parsha in the book of Bereshit, starts on page 268. But I want to double back to a very interesting episode that took place at the end of Parshat Vayigash and relates to the beginning of our Parsha over here. Let's take a look on page 262, Perek Mem Zayin, Pasuk Zayin, 47:7. Yaakov and his sons have just come down to Egypt. Yaakov is a very elderly man. Vayaveh Yosef et Yaakov Aviv. Yosef brought Yaakov, his father, v'ya'amideyu lifnei Paro. And he had him stand up. He presented him to Paro. Vayavarech Yaakov to 264 at Paro. Yaakov gave a blessing to Paro. Vayomer Paro Yaakov. And Paro said to Yaakov, Kama yemei shenei chayecha. How many? Well, we would say simply, how old are you? But let's look carefully. Kama yemei shenei chayecha. What are the days of the years of your life? Vayomer Yaakov el Paro. Yaakov says to Paro as follows: Yemei shenei mugurai. The days of the years of my not chayai, not of my life, but of my sojourns, are shloshim uma'at shana, 130 years. Ma'at v'ra'im hayu yimei shnei chayai. Ma'at, few. V'ra'im, and difficult and bad. Were yemei shnei chayai, were the days of the years of my life. Below he sigut yemei shnei chayavotai, and they have not reached the level of the days of the years of the life of my fathers, b'yemei migurahem, during their sojourns. So what is happening over here? Right? I mean, it almost, I don't know. I hear that. I hear what was it, Mason, the Jewish comedian, right? Imitating Perry Mason, right? Jackie Mason. Thank you. Right? I hear Jackie Mason imitating an old Jewish guy, kvetching. I've had a tough year. Yeah, I mean, this is Yaakov speaking over here. So first of all, before we get into what the Malbim, how he dissects this so beautifully, but in fact, we are taught that Yaakov lost a year of his life for every word that he said to Paro. Meaning that if we as Jews are complaining, so who does that reflect poorly upon? God. Right? That's why when someone asks us how we're doing, the proper response is Baruch Hashem. Wonderful. Thank God. Even if, as we'll soon see, even if we're having some issues, but we recognize that Baruch Hashem, God runs the world. He knows what he's doing. And there's a reason, no pain, no gain. We know we have to go through different things at different times. And that is the nature of life. Life is not, we always discuss, life is not meant to be the spa, with the pina colada as they're fanning me by the pool. Life is the workout room. And that's where we and therefore we have issues, we have challenges and difficulties along the way. That's what life is meant to be. But what's fascinating, Rav Chaim Shmulevitz points out, is that Yaakov lost a year of his life, not just for every word that he said, but also for every word that Paro said. I mean, I understand I'm responsible for my response. Why am I responsible for Paro's question? What would you say, my friends? Why would Yaakov be responsible for Paro's question? So at times, our face, the way we walk, the way we talk, so that is what initiated the question. You know, had Yaakov walked in there with a big smile, done some jumping jacks, right? So Paro would not have said to him, "How old are you?" Right? But if I walk in there like, ah, 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 so then someone's going to say, "How old are you?" Right? So I caused that.
Caused it.
My demeanor, and we say very often, the Bali Musar, the ethicists, let us say to us, your face is a reshut harabim. Your face is considered to be public domain. And just like you can't dig a hole, dig a pit in public domain and thereby endanger the public, and you're responsible if you do, well, if your face is something that's going to cause people to trip, and to cause people to, they see you and they also get depressed, right? I always try that. It's amazing. When you're checking out of a grocery store, all you need to do is smile nicely at the person, at the checkout person, and you'll see a complete change in that person, in their face, their relaxation, right? Our face is public domain. Our face affects all those that are around us. And therefore we need to make sure that we exude a sense that makes other people feel good about the world, about the day, about the bananas that we're both picking out, whatever it is, right? To make people feel good, right? And Yaakov exuded this heaviness. And that's what prompted Paro to ask the question. And therefore he was held responsible not just for his response, but for the question that his actions actually initiated. But let's analyze this answer. Paro said to him, Kama yimei shenei chayecha. What are the days of the years of your life? And Yaakov discussed two different aspects. He discussed yimei shenei migurai, the days of the years of my sojourn, and he then discussed the days of the years of my life. In other words, Yaakov was schooling Paro to a certain degree. There is Yemei Shnei Megurai, the days of the years of my sojourn. That is from the day that we're born until the day that we pass. Those are the days of the years of my sojourn. That's how long we are here on earth. But we mentioned before, it's all in the dash. Meaning, if you look at a matzeva, at a tombstone, it'll have the date of birth, the date of passing, and there's a dash in between. It's all in the dash. Doesn't really matter when it started, when it ended. The question is, what happened in between? How was those years filled? It's all in the dash. And the dash is what Yaakov refers to as Yemei Shnei Chayai. You're asking me about the days of the years of my life. No, you're asking me about my age. That's Yemei Shnei Megurai. That's the days of the years of my sojourn. But the days of the years of my life, that's something else. That's referring to what have I accomplished with this gift of time that was given to me. What have I accomplished? And that's Yaakov's answer to Paro. The days of the years of my sojourn, you want to know how old I am? Here's the birth certificate. Shloshim ma'at shana, 130 years. You asked Yemei Shnei Chayai, not Megurai. The words that you used was actually asking about my accomplishments. And that, he says, Yemei Shnei Ma'at V'ra'im, few, sparse, were the days of the years of my life, of my accomplishment. V'lo hisigu et Yemei Shnei Chayei Avotai V'yimei Megureim, and they have not reached, come close to the accomplishments of the Yemei Shnei Chayei Avotai, of the Yemei Shnei Chayai, of the accomplishments of my fathers, B'yimei Megureim, during their years that were given to them. Their years, Megureim, were filled with accomplishments. But mine have not been filled with accomplishments. And keep in mind also, we know Yaakov's name was changed to Yisroel. Abraham was changed to Abraham. Sarai was changed to Sarah. Sarai was changed to Sarah. And once their names were changed, we never again hear about Avram. We never again hear Sarai. Their names were changed. He became Avraham. She became Sarah, leaving Avram and Sarai behind. Yaakov becomes Yisroel, and yet the Torah almost interchangeably goes up and back. Yaakov Yisroel, Yaakov Yisroel, Yaakov Yisroel. Why? What is the method? What is the reason? When is Yaakov used? When is Yisroel used? Yaakov is grasping at the heel. Yaakov is when he is feeling down. Yisroel is the sar. Yisroel is when he is in an exalted position. Right now he's speaking as Yaakov. Let me show you. We'll turn back just a few pages. When Yaakov hears the news, go back to page 256. The brothers are now telling Yaakov, verse 25, Memhei, Chafhei, 45, 25, page 256, verses 25. The brothers are coming now to Yaakov. Remember, Yaakov has been in a state of mourning, saying, I'll go down to the grave mourning for my son Yosef. I will never be consoled. And now they're coming and letting him know that Yosef is alive. Let's take a look. Verse 25. They went up from Egypt, came to the land of Canaan, to Yaakov, their father. V'yagidu lo lemor, and they said to him, they told him, saying, "Oh, Yosef chai, Yosef is still alive. V'chiu Moshe b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, and he's ruling over all of Egypt. V'yafag libo, and his heart was like faint, rejected it. Ki lo hamin lem, he didn't believe them. V'yadabru elav, it called Yosef. They told him all the words of Yosef, Asher diber lehem, that he had told them, and he saw the wagons that he sent. Vatichi ruach Yaakov avihem. The spirit of Jacob, their father, came to life. Vayomer Yisroel. Do you hear that? The spirit of Yaakov came to life, and now who's speaking? It's not Yaakov anymore. Now it's Yisroel. Vayomer Yisroel Rav. Oh, Yosef b'ni chai. Wow, my son Joseph is still alive. Elcha, I'll go ve'erenu, and I will see him b'terem amut, before I die. Vayisa Yisrael, and Yisrael traveled. Verse 1. Verse 2. V'yomer Elokim li Yisrael. Right, and God said to Yisrael, Vayomer, he said Yaakov, Yaakov. Vayomer Hineni. Right? Why? Because Yaakov is now afraid to go down to Egypt a little bit. Don't be afraid. You become a great nation. I will bring you up from there. Okay. With that in mind, let's now go to the start of our Parsha this week, Parshat Vayechi, page 268. Vayechi Yaakov, Be'eretz Mitzrayim, Shva Esrei Shana. Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. Okay. Yaakov lived for 17 years. Now, it could have said Vayehi Yaakov, and Yaakov was in Egypt for 17 years. Obviously, he's living, right? When we're discussing somebody, the assumption is that they're living. Had it said Yaakov was in Egypt for 17 years, we would not have been missing out on anything. Why does it say Vayechi Yaakov? That Yaakov lived in Mitzrayim for 17 years? Because now he was fully alive. Now he was fully alive. Why? Because I think we mentioned before that Yaakov had this understanding. His mission in life was to establish these 12 tribes. And with the death of one of them, he understood that to mean he had failed in his mission. And that's part of why he was inconsolable. Right? If I failed in my mission in life, so, an Entenmann's donut is not going to help. It's not going to change things, right? All the things that you can give me in life, I'll be inconsolable if I know God sent me here to this world with a mission and failed, came up short, didn't do it. But now he's fully alive. Why? Because he is now reunited with all of his 12 sons. And they are all good and they are all righteous. And they have all come together. We'll discuss that a little further this morning. What did Yaakov know about Yosef's disappearance? Right? The Torah never tells us what he knew or didn't know. And you could imagine, right? On one hand, the first question would be, what happened? Where were you? And on the other hand, sometimes as a parent, we'd rather not know. Sometimes as a parent, you have to choose what you see and choose what you decide you didn't see. Sometimes if you see it, you've got to react. And you don't really want to react, so you could choose not to see certain things. Remember when I was teaching in high school, so sometimes people would say something, and I was like, well, Rabbi, did you hear that? No? Did somebody say something? You choose to have selective hearing, you choose to have selective vision, and that way it's you can navigate a little bit more easily through certain things. So on one hand, I'm sure Yaakov was bursting. What happened? On the other hand, perhaps he didn't want to know. He knew about the animosity between Yosef, the brothers, and Yosef. He knew that he sent them out there. He knew he never came back. Maybe he just didn't want to know. So from the psukim themselves, it's unclear how much Yaakov knew, but for all intents and purposes, the children are getting along. Yosef's taking care of everybody, and therefore now Vayechi, he's alive, he's living, fully living. Remember, Yemei Shnei Chayai, not Yemei Shnei Megurai. Now he is Chayai. Now he's alive. He's with all his 12 sons. Everyone's alive. Everyone is well. Everyone is following in his path. What could be better? Vayechi Yaakov. Actually, I think the Baal Turim points out The gematria, the numerical value of Vayechi, Vav Yud Chet Yud, so Vav is 6, Yud is 10, Chet is 8, and Yud is 10 again. We have 28 plus 6 is 34. So Vayechi Yaakov, how long did Yaakov live? Was he fully alive like that? Vayechi, 34 years. How 34? How old was Yosef when he was sold? 17 years old. And now, at the end of his life, the tail end of his life, 17 years, 17 times 2, 34. Vayechi Yaakov. But then the pasuk goes through a transformation. Vayihi Yemei Yaakov. And it was the days of Yaakov. Shnei Chayav. The years of his life, not Shnei Megurai. Yemei Shnei Chayav, the years of his life were Sheva Shanim v'Arba'im Uma'at Shana. It was 147 years. Meaning, no more Shnei Megurai, this is how old I am, but these were difficult and these were. It was 147 years of good, of productivity, solid years. Remember, we learned before by Chaye Sarah, we Shnei Chaye Sarah, the years of the life of Sarah, and Rashi said they were all good. Kulan Shavim, they were all equally good. And we asked, all equally good? Are you kidding me? She's taken captive by Paro. She's taken captive by Avimelech. She had all the sorrow of not having a child till she was 90. All the problems with Hagar and with Yishmael. It was all equally good. But yeah, when we recognize that we're in those all-state hands, we're in God's hands, then even when it's good and it's not good, even when it's challenging and when it's easy, even when it's comfortable, and even when we're sweating or even when we're crying, we recognize, yeah, kulan shavim litova. They're all equally good. We don't always see that. We don't always perceive it. We're taught kishen shemavachin ala tov, kach mavachin ala ra. The same way we thank God for good, we also thank God for that which we perceive as Ra, because it is a loving parent who sometimes needs to say no, sometimes needs to put us through some difficulties in order for us to become who we need to become. And that's when we make a bracha, shechianu, when good things happen, and we make a bracha, Baruch Dayan Emet, blessed is the true judge. That's what the mourners say at a funeral. We accept, we accept, we accept. And Yaakov at this point is able to accept that it's all God. It's all one. And therefore, yes, all 147 years, with the good and the bad, with the time at home, and then having to run from Esav. And then the time, according to the sages, the 14 years he spent studying, and then which were blissful, and then the time that he spent by Lavan, the 20 years he spent by Lavan, and then wrestling with the angel, and then encountering Esav, and then the sale of Joseph, and all those years, 22 years of being without Yosef, and now being. What a roller coaster of a life. What a roller coaster of a life. But at this point, he's able to say, Shnei Chayav. Yemei Shnei Chayav, 147 years. He's able to see that it's all one. You know, when we say the Shema Yisroel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem is the reference to, is the name of God that refers to the midah the attribute of compassion. Elohim is the name of God that refers to the attribute of judgment. And we recognize the Jewish pledge of allegiance, Shema Yisroel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. It's all one. It's all wrapped up. It's all one. It all comes from God. It's all one. And if it's all God, then it's all good. And that's the Yemei Shnei Chayav. Right? We had a teaching before that when Yaakov and Yosef encountered one another, it says that Yosef was crying. It doesn't say what Yaakov was. It doesn't say Yaakov was crying. And our sages say Yaakov was saying the Shema. Wow. Now's the time to say Shema. You're seeing your beloved son after 22 years. Now's the time that you're saying Shema. And there are a number of different approaches. One approach is, at that point, Yaakov felt this incredible euphoria of love, of appreciation. And he wanted to channel that towards God. So he chose that moment to say the Shema. But others explain Shema is understanding the tapestry of Hashem, Elokeinu, Hashem, Echad, that it's all one. You know, the tefillin that we wear, there's the right side, the left side. The right side is chesed, the left side is din, and then it gets tied into a knot. Tied into a knot that sits by the back of the head. That knot is that the chesed, the compassion and the judgment are so tightly interwoven and intertwined. But then it comes down into this world, and that's the tefillin, the straps that hang down. Then it comes down to this world. But everything that comes down is this mixture of din and rachamim, compassion and judgment. And Yaakov at that point was able to fathom that all that roller coaster of life that he had with the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs. Echad. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem Echad. That it's all one. And that's why it says, once he reached this understanding, right? 28 starts Vayichi Yaakov. Yaakov lived Eretz Mitzrayim. And what is 29? Vayikrevu Yemei Yisroel Lamut. Once he reached and completely internalized this understanding, this view, he's no longer Yaakov. Now it's what? Vayikrevu Yemei Yisroel Lamut. He's referred to as Jacob in 28, but in verse 29, at this point, when the days are drawing close for his death, now he is Yisroel. Now he has reached up to that level. Okay. And he summons Yosef and says, I don't want to be buried in Egypt. Bring me back to Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Right? And Yosef swears that he will do that. Okay. Then Yosef brings his sons. At a later point, he hears that his father is deteriorating, is going downhill. So he brings his sons for the blessing, and the very famous blessing that we give our sons on a Friday night, right, is over here. That Hashem should make you like Ephraim and Menashe. Good. Okay. Right, that's on page 274, the bottom of 272. And he blessed them, saying, by you shall Israel bless, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Menashe. Okay, chapter 49. Yaakov summons all of his sons, and he gives them each their brachot. He gives them each their blessing. And these are difficult psukim, very poetic and difficult to understand. And the commentators all go through it. I'd like to focus on the bracha that he gave Yosef. And let's try to unpack that. And Rabbi David Foreman has a beautiful explanation that I'll be working with that seems to answer the question, did Yaakov know what happened or did he not know what happened? Let's take a look. We're on page 280. Okay, verse 22, Perek Memtet, Pasuk Chafbet, 49:22, page 280. Ben Porat Yosef. Ben Porat Yosef, a son of charm, a charming son. Are you Yosef? Ben Porat Ale Ayin, a very charming son to the eye. Banot Tza'ada Ali Ale Shur. The Banot, the daughters, climbed Ale Shur, up high, in order to gaze. That's how charming this Yosef was. But life was not always charming for Yosef. And he continues. Vayemaruhu. They embittered him. Mar, bitter. Varobu. And they contended with him. They fought with him. Now, we would think, who's this referring to? The brothers, right? That's what it would seem, right? They embittered him. They strove with him. They were antagonists, the English says. Vayistamuhu, and they hated him. Ba'ale chitzim. Chitz is an arrow. Those with the arrows. Now, the Torah uses a term for the brothers hating Yosef. The Hebrew term is, if you look back at Vayeshev, going back, this saga has been going on for a while. On page 200, the brothers saw that the father loved him, Vayisna'u oto, and they hated him. The Torah has a word for hate. What word is that? Vayisna'u oto. Right? They hated him. And then the next verse, and Yosef had a dream, told the brothers, and they Vayisivu od sano oto. They hated him even more. So the Torah uses a word for hatred the brothers had to him, and that is sin'ah. That is hatred. Not vayistom. Not satima, not vayistom. So by using this word, perhaps it's not the brothers that he's talking about. Furthermore, why do we call the brothers the ones with arrows? An arrow is a way of shooting and harming someone from a distance without getting up close. The brothers got pretty up close. The brothers took him and threw him into a pit. The brothers were planning on killing him. The brothers then decided instead that they would sell him. According to Rashi, they sold him. According to others, the Midyanim sold him, Rashbam. But either way, it wasn't exactly arrows. This was more hands-on than that. Let's go a little bit further. Vateshev be'etan kashto. Veyafozu zoroei yadav. Vateshev be'etan, his keshet, his bow. Vateshev stayed be'etan, with strength. Vayafozu zroei yadav, and his arms were shaking. Miyadei avir Yaakov. This came from the strength of the powerful one of Yaakov, of God. Misham roe even Yisroel. From there, he became the shepherd of the stone of Israel, of this nation of Israel. Vayistamuhu, and they hated him. We mentioned that that's a strange term to use for hatred. Usually the Torah uses sinah. That's what the Torah uses by the brothers. However, there are two places where the Torah uses the word vayistom for hatred. Where is that? Take a look on page 140. Perek Chav Zayin, Mem Aleph, 2741. Yaakov went into Yitzchak, Isaac, and received the blessings. Esav comes back and finds out, realizes that Yaakov had impersonated him and received the blessings. And he cried out in 39, right? Or 38. Is there any blessing left for me, Father? And he cried. 41. Vayistom Esav et Yaakov. Esav hated Yaakov. And Esav said, when my father dies, I will kill Yaakov, my brother. So the Torah uses Vayistom when it comes to the hatred amongst brothers. When it comes to the hatred amongst brothers, the Torah uses the word Vayistom. Now let's go to the end of Vayichi, of our Parsha this week, for the other time the Torah uses Vayistom. Just 1 second. And let's go to page 286. This is after Yaakov, after Jacob's death. They brought him, as Yosef had sworn, to Israel, Marat Machpelah, and he was buried in the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron. And they came back, verse 14. And Yosef came back to Mitzrayim, he and his brothers and all those who had gone with him to bury their father. And Vayiru Ache Yosef Kimet Aviyim. The brothers saw that now their father was dead. Vayomru, and they said, Lu Yistamenu Yosef. Yosef might hate us now. Interesting. Esav hated Yaakov and said, once father dies, I'm going to kill him. And here, brothers, hatred, father death. Here we have after father death. What do we have? The brothers are afraid now Yosef, after father's death, might unleash this hatred on us. V'hashev yashiv lanu, and he will return unto us eight kol hara'ah asher gamalnu oto. He will send back unto us all that which we had sent unto him. Which means that we're afraid he will yistom, take revenge against brothers, as we had done to him. Which means then that Satam Vayistamehu, Vayistamu back on 282, that can be a term referring to the brothers. And it seems then that Yaakov is referring to the brothers. Vayimararu, back to 282, they embittered him. Varobu, they fought with him. Vayistamuhu, Baalei Chitzim, and they hated him. And Vayistom again is a hatred between brothers that might come to death. Baalei Chitzim, the arrows. But why arrows? So let's go to the next pasuk again. Vateshev be'etan kashto. Let's just picture Yosef for a moment. These brothers caused him all of this pain. They took him, they threw him into a pit, they sold him down as a slave. And as a slave, he was a slave there. And then he moved up and he was wrongly accused and thrown into prison. I mean, look at the pain and agony these brothers caused him. To the point that when finally he interprets the dreams of Paro, and he's elevated and he gets married and he has a son, what does he name his firstborn son? Menashe. Why? Nashani Elokim. God has allowed me to finally forget all the pain of the house of my father, all that I went through over there. Finally, I can leave all that behind. I can move on. And then all the brothers are there. He can do with them. He's number 2 in Egypt. He can do with them whatever he wants. Absolute impunity. There are no human rights organizations that are going to, no NGOs that are going to raise a stink. He can do whatever he wants. And if we were to imagine that, the imagery that Yaakov gives is so powerful. Vateshev be'etan kashto. That bow, you pull on the bow, and then there's a lot of tension. And then what do? You release it. And the arrow gets shot. But if I pull on the bow, it's right there, but I don't let go, what starts to happen? My muscles, right? They start to shake. They start to quiver. Maybe that's why it's called a quiver. I don't know. But it's actually called a quiver, isn't it? Right? But I start to quiver. My muscles start to shake. I start to tremble. It is so difficult to keep it there and not let go. All you need to do, you're holding it back and you're shaking, you're trembling, you're quivering. And all you need to do to stop that is let go. It's so easy. But he didn't. Vateshev, and he remained be'etan, with the strength on that keshet, on that bow. Ve'yafozus ro'yadav, and his hands were shaking, were quivering. Incredible. So now we can understand why he referred to the brothers as Baalei Chitzim. They didn't shoot arrows. Yeah, but what did they do? They followed through on it. That's how you shoot an arrow. You don't restrain. You don't control yourself. You don't agonize over it. That's how you shoot an arrow. The brothers were Baalei Chitzim. The brothers were the ones who shot their arrows. They had their antagonism. They had their bitterness. They had their vayistamuhu. They had their hatred. And what did they do? They shot the arrow. They were balei chitzin. For them, it was the arrow. For Yosef, it was not the arrow. What was it? It was the bow. Vateshev be'etan kashto. He stayed there with strength on that bow. Ve'afozus roi yadav. And his arms were shaking, right? Holding himself back. It would have been so easy to just unleash on these brothers. 22 years of pain, of frustration, of agony, of subjugation, of humiliation, of degradation. And now here they are at my mercy. They don't even know who I am. They don't even know who I am. No one knows who they are to me. I could simply say they were disrespectful to me and tell my men, take them away, lock them up, torture them, kill them. I could do whatever I want to them with absolute impunity. And the arm was shaking. The arm was shaking. But Yaakov says, Yosef, you held back. You held back. Where do you get this from? Miyadei Avir Yaakov. You got this from the mighty power of Yaakov, right? That's where you got this strength, right? You got this strength from God who is the powerful one of Yaakov. Meaning, as we said all along, as we say almost every week, as we started off today, right? Yaakov recognized Vayichi, the ups and downs, the roller coaster of life. It's all coming from Hashem. We discussed last week the idea of forgiveness. How did Yosef forgive the brothers? What did he say to them? God sent me here. There's a master plan. Yes, we have our free will, and yes, we are responsible for the free will decisions that we make. But my free will stops at your nose. Meaning, if my free will is going to affect you, that means that from the heavens, for whatever reason, you're supposed to endure that. And therefore, yes, you guys sent me down here, but God sent me down here. If I wasn't supposed to be here, then you would not have succeeded in your attempt to send me down here. And therefore, it is the Avir Yaakov. It's from God, the powerful one of Jacob. And Yaakov, we said, came to that realization. He changed the Shnei Megurai to Shnei Mechayai. All 147 years were Yemei Shnei Chayai, were the days of the years of my life. And Yosef was able to look at this Avir Yaakov, this powerful one, this God, the God of his father, and say, hey, they are not the ones who caused it. For whatever reason, I needed to endure what I endured. They were the vehicle through which it came about. They'll need to answer to God about that. They'll need to justify that. That's their dealing between them and God. That has nothing to do with me. I've got to deal with why was I given this situation? What can I do with this situation? And what I can do is utilize my position now to take care of my family and prepare them for the ultimate redemption that will come about and Har Sinai. That's what I can do now. I can help them. I can be a source of provision, sustenance, protection for them. That's what's for me to do. Why they did that between them and God. And therefore Yosef, was able to hold on and not let go, even though it was pulled tight and there was tension, there was pressure, and his arms were shaking, but he held tight. What allowed him to hold tight? Avir Yaakov. And therefore, what will result? Misham roeh even Yisroel. That's why he will be able to be the shepherd for Israel. And out from Yosef came many kings. Meaning, even though the earlier blessing to Yehuda, to Judah, was that kings would come from him, and the royal family of the Jewish people goes through David, who's a descendant of Judah, of Yehuda, and the royalty has to flow through Yehuda, and the Mashiach will come through Yehuda, right? It's got to be from the tribe of Judah, right? And the tribe is only passed through a father, right? And that was Yehuda going straight down. But for many years, the kingdom had split. During the time of Rechavam, the son of Shlomo, the kingdom split. There was the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. And Yeravam ben Nevat, who was the first king of Israel, came from the tribe of Yosef. Yosef also became the scion of royalty that came. What gave him that ability to be this leader of Israel? The restraint, the self-control, the non-unleashing of the arrows, but the recognition of Avir Yaakov, the recognition of that which comes our way is coming by Hashem. And what we need to do is do the best that we possibly can in the situation that the divine orchestration, Hashgacha Pratis, has placed us in. That's all we can ever do. I always say, God deals the cards, and all that matters is how we play it. That's what's left to us. How do we handle those situations? And it was this incredible fortitude of Yosef which gave him that strength. And according to this, it seems that Yaakov, whether or not he knew the gory details, but it seems he knew that the brothers had brought about this whole calamity of Yosef's abduction, Yosef's sale, Yosef's slavery, right? But nevertheless, like we said, sometimes a parent needs to know what to focus on and what to keep going on. And the fact that the brothers at the very end of the Parsha, right? So they thought that Yosef might be angry. Let's just see that on page 286. They were afraid that Yosef now might take revenge, that arm quivering might finally let go of the arrow. And they sent a message to Yosef saying, our father commanded us before his death, going to page 288, 289, saying, tell Yosef, bear the sins of your brothers, and do not pay them back bad, right? Carry their sins. Yosef hears that, and Yosef starts to cry. And he goes to the brothers. They sent a messenger. He went himself to his brothers. He fell before them. And they said, the brothers came to him. And they said, we'll be to you as servants. And Yosef said, Al tira'u. Do not be afraid. Ki atachat Elokim ani. Am I in the place of God? Atem chashatem alai ra'a. You thought badly. You intended bad for me. Elokim chashava l'tova. But God intended, God transformed that into a tova. Laman, in order, asok yom hazeh lachayot am rav, in order that I can sustain this whole nation. Once again, Yosef is saying, I'm not in the place of God to do this. I'm not, right? I will keep that arrow there, or I'll actually put down the whole bow and arrow, right? It's not me. It's not you. God's running the world, and I see this as an act of God. And the only question that I ask is, what does God want of me to do now in this situation? And that is to take care of you. And therefore, 21, fear not, I will sustain you and your young ones. Why am I in this situation? To take care of you and your children. And he comforted them and he spoke to their hearts. With that, we conclude the Sefer, the book of Bereshit, which gives us its creation, physical creation, and its creation of the foundations of us as a people. And so importantly, we saw all of the faults, all of the stumbles of our great, great patriarchs. We saw all of those stumbles. And that doesn't take away from their greatness. That is the illustration, the model for us, that we in life, we stumble, and that does not mean, right, that we're out for the count. We can't allow ourselves to be out for the count. We stumble, we pick ourselves up, we keep on going, and we have gained from the experience. And life is not always going to be easy. So often people say, well, I don't believe in God, because if there's God, why is there so much pain in the world? Well, if there's a God book, it's the Bible, it's the Torah. If there's a God book. And what does the God book begin with? Things not going perfectly. Adam and Eve, out of the garden, but there's a way to correct it. Cain and Hevel, Cain kills Abel. We don't go into what did Abel do to deserve that. We go into how can Cain correct and move on from that. Abel's already in the world to come. God will take care of him. Cain, down here in this world. The God book is not about this idyllic existence of everything going perfectly well. Well, then why is there any pain in the world? Read the God book. This world is meant to be a place that we go through experiences, we gain, we grow, we're transformed, we become that much greater, we become that much more godly by the way that we deal with them. That's the purpose. And this book of Bereshit, from beginning to end, is all about character building, character transformation, taking responsibility, not holding the grudge, but recognizing the hand of God and going forward with that from beginning to end. And once we have those foundations, we can now start the book of Shemot, which is the book of the nation of Israel. No longer the individuals of Israel, but the nation of Israel. And guess what? That's not going to be hunky-dory either. There's going to be slavery. There's going to be difficulty. But that's all what's necessary to build the individual. That's all what's necessary to build the nation. That is the very purpose of this world, according to our understanding. So as we finish a book, we say together, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. Let us be strong, let us be strong. Let us only get stronger. May we all be strengthened as we work our own little pathway through our world that Hashem has set, the pathway that Hashem has set us upon. Okay, my friends, good learning with everybody. Hopefully the vaccine, hopefully in a few months' time, maybe I don't know how many, we'll actually be able to be in person again. I look forward to that. And until then, we resume. Sorry. Yep. Okay. We keep on going with our Zoom. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Good day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much.
Very, very important, everybody. Talking about taking our experiences and gaining from that and helping others from that. Next Thursday night, a week from this Thursday night at 8:30, we're going to hear from Kalman Samuels. Fascinating, incredible story. He had a very special needs child, and he and his wife dedicated their lives building an institution, where now it's an incredible institution, thousands of kids there every day, that people, parents who have their situation with a child who has such special needs will not have to endure what they had to endure, and will have a whole program for them and a whole place for them and a whole system that takes care of the children and helps the parents. Incredible organization and incredible, just what we always talk about, taking what comes our way and turning that into something that benefits not just ourselves but others. That's a week from this Thursday night, 8:30. Please tune in. It'll be incredible. It'll be incredible. He's incredible. The organization's incredible. It's not for fundraising. It's to learn how to open ourselves up to those who are different, and to see what's being done, and then to inspire us in our own ways to see what we can do also. Very, very, very worthwhile. 8:30 this a week from this Thursday night, January, whatever it is. Always confused. January 7th, Thursday night. Okay, everybody. Shavua Tov, everybody.
Shavua Tov.
And we'll see you at Mincha today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shavua
Thank you.
Tov, Shavua Tov.